Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 7 of the Give 'em Heck podcast. I'm Brian, this is your host, Penny, and we're very excited to bring yet another great message for you today. I would like to first extend a thank you to all of our returning viewers. We're very happy to have you here, and happy to have any newcomers. We're very happy to have you here as well, and we hope you get something out of this and enjoy the experience and the terror of our lives.
Is that what we call it?
Absolutely.
Well, that was vicious.
So take it away.
Yes, like Brian said, welcome. We do hope that you guys are finding something in each and one of these podcasts. Maybe some of them speak to you more than others. But, you know, we're all at different places in our life, so that's what we're hoping is that maybe each one you have found a little something, but maybe there's one that spoke to you even more than others. But welcome back. Welcome any newcomers, and we'll just get started. So again, disclaimer, we're not doctors, psychologists, or counselors. We're not giving any medical or psychological advice. Just here to discuss real life situations and hope to give hope, encouragement, and instill change in your lives. So in our last episode, we'll get right into it. Look at that, wham, bam. In our last episode, which was episode 6, I can't even believe we're on episode 7. This has gone by so fast, hasn't it?
I thought about that yesterday. I was like, when I was looking at our podcast on YouTube, I was like, man, we're at episode 7. Feels like we just set all of this up.
It does. It does. Like I remember, I don't know if it was last week or the week before, you said to me something about episode 10, and I'm thinking, yeah, that'll be a while.
No, it's literally right around the corner.
Yeah, it's almost there. So anyway, in our last episode, which was episode 6, we discussed happiness and joy. And today's episode is gonna, again, I always like to try to find a way to intertwine them together, because with the topics that we do talk about, everything does kind of overlap. You know, but life does, right?
Yeah.
And because we talk about life situations, whether it's feelings or emotions or, you know, whatever trauma you're dealing with, or, you know, whether it's physical, emotional, whatever, they do all kind of intertwine together. So with the happiness, we talked about how it was very temporary and shallow.
Yeah.
You know, it's not, it's just a fleeting moment thing.
Yeah.
You know, we talked about how joy was deeper, a more lasting emotion. I guess joy was definitely one of those things that was a little bit harder to define.
Yeah. Well, I think the problem with joy is that it, even though it has a very universal term, I think it's very personal to each person. You know, what brings joy to one person doesn't bring it to another. It is like happiness, but in a higher level. So it's hard to explain it, because I think people can attribute it to other things. It's even connected to other emotions.
Yeah.
You know, like what could be sad to you could be joyous for me, because I approach it from a different mindset.
Or maybe it doesn't affect you the same way.
Yeah. Like it could still be something personal, but it's something that doesn't connect in the same way.
Yeah, because there's no connection there. Yeah, absolutely. So we talked about how joy can be found in serving others. Like that was one of the things that we said, with joy being hard to explain, one of the things was with serving others. It's about accepting ourselves and others where we're at and who we are, right? Because we're always trying to be better. It's always about the being, not who you are right now, but where we're going. We also talked about how people will make mistakes and choices, and even though we don't always agree, because we can agree to disagree, and sometimes we just have to let go, and that came with the forgiveness and moving on. So I wanted to divulge into that part of it a little bit more today with the moving on. Because although when we talked about joy being one of those things where, yes, we can serve others and find joy, or maybe there's situational things like you just said in our lives that maybe what brings joy to me doesn't to you, or vice versa, right? The part that I thought about was, how do you forgive and how do you move on? So what I thought with that was, well, what is something that causes us through life trying to find joy? If this makes sense, tell me. If it doesn't, interject, obviously. In finding joy and moving on with forgiveness, I thought, what is the things I feel kind of hinder us in that? What hinders us from forgiveness? What hinders us from moving on? What is that thing? And it could be multiple things. I thought of one thing, and we're going to get into it. But what is that one thing or those things that keep us from forgiving or moving forward? Do you want to interject here before I tell you what I think?
So you want an answer from me?
I do.
Based off of personal experience, I actually know a person who won't forgive me for mistakes that I made a long time ago. It was a mutual mistake. Without getting too much into it, it was a mistake I made to a friend.
Okay.
And I already, this friend that I made a mistake with, her and I are good. We're friends again. Mm-hmm. But one of her friends doesn't like me.
Ooh, an offense.
Yeah. Now, from the perspective that her friend has told her, I can understand why. But based on the context of your question and based on how I see it from an outsider, because I've never talked to this other person.
What?
Based on it, I think a lot of it could be a level of, I guess, maybe a little bit of pride. There's this complex of I can't forgive them for what they did to you.
That's weird.
And my mindset is she has the right to think that way, but I'm also thinking, have you never made a mistake in your life? What makes you think that the mistakes that you've made in the past can't be forgiven? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It doesn't hold anything on me, her thinking that I'm a bad person.
Right.
But number one, you don't know me. Mm-hmm. You only know me based on the problems that I had in the past with the friend that I'm friends with again. And you're holding on to a grudge for what reason? Is it pride? Could be a little bit. It could be ignorance because she doesn't know me. So I think when you approach a situation where you don't forgive somebody for what they did to you, I think it's important to reflect on yourself. Mm-hmm. You know?
Yep.
Because if they can't forgive me, then what gives the next person that wrongs them the right to forgive them?
So
it creates a constant cycle of hate.
It does. So, who has the problem? You said reflecting on yourself, so who has the problem?
Obviously, I can't judge her, but based on an outsider's perspective, I think she has more of a problem than I do.
Right.
Forgiveness is very important, not just for the other person, but for yourself.
Absolutely.
It
I think
brings
even
you
more for yourself.
Well, like I said, if you constantly have a chip on your shoulder against somebody, you don't necessarily have to say to their face, I forgive you. But I think there's a point where, there's a lot of people I don't like. I'll use this as an example. There's a lot of people that I know that I don't like. I don't want to be around them. I don't want to think about them. I don't even want to see their names pop up.
Right.
But that doesn't mean I'm thinking about them 24 hours a day. Mm-hmm. I've moved past it. Mm-hmm. It is moving on is a part of forgiveness, but it's not a like, it's like I think I said this in a prior episode. It's like a forgive and forget kind of thing, like move on, drop it, But when those things come up, like that, the people that I don't like, I just don't want to be around them. It doesn't mean that I think about them all the time or that I'm constantly like, I don't forgive them, I hate them.
Right.
It's just, I just don't want, they don't exist to me. It's like the guy that lives 5 houses down from you that you've never talked to a day in your life. You know he exists, but you don't know him.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like that. And that's the thing that I would probably describe, your question. Mm-hmm. They have more of the problem than me.
Well, and I think it's weird. I'm just going to touch on that part before we get to what I'm talking about tonight is number one, this person that doesn't forgive you, you said doesn't know you. And the fact that they've never even tried to get to know you or talk to you, to me, I can't wrap that around my head. How do you not like somebody? How do you choose not to forgive somebody based on something that somebody else said? So you drew your own conclusion of this person for yourself, and now you're carrying around an offense. For what reason?
Mm-hmm. And I can use that for me because in the past there's been people that I didn't like, but they would be all that I talked about. Can you believe what this person did? 2-3 weeks later, I'm still talking about it. Mm-hmm. There's a difference between not liking somebody and then like forgiving them to an extent enough to just move on from it.
Right.
You can't, forgiveness and forgetting, they lock together. Mm-hmm. If you're still talking about that person,
you haven't forgiven them.
Exactly. Now, it's one thing, and I'll say this in general, it's one thing to not like somebody long term when they constantly did bad things. Me, I only messed up one bad time. Mm-hmm. And then after that, I made amends. At least I tried to. Mm-hmm. And we separated, my friend and I, and then we got back together,
Time.
And time,
has
that relates to the one of our other podcast episodes.
Yeah.
In the case of the people that I don't like, it's just I forgive you, but I don't want anything to do with you.
And sometimes that's okay.
Yeah, and that's okay. It doesn't mean that when you forgive somebody, you have to be all buddy-buddy with them. Mm-mm. It's like
sometimes it's best.
Somebody told me one time, they were like,
not.
What? I'm sorry.
Sometimes it's best to not be with them anymore.
Well, exactly.
It's okay.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. You don't have to be friends with them again. If you, as an individual, I have the right to not like somebody because of something that they may or may not have done. If they apologize for it, or if they offended somebody else and they say they're sorry, that's fine. I just don't want to be around them anymore. Mm-hmm. But in the context of the bigger picture, sometimes, like you said, it's important to stay away from certain people because they do, we're all human. We boil with emotions sometimes. That's normal. But don't feel obligated to be friends with somebody, even if they apologize to your face or not. Because you have to do what's best for yourself.
Yes.
You're like I said this many times in other episodes, you're the most important person in your life. Mm-hmm. So it's more of just like, I just want to live my life outside of it.
Yep.
And I'm going to do what I want.
Well, I think for your mental, what's the word I want to use? Not safety, for your mental well-being. Maybe even sometimes for your physical well-being, depending on the situation. Mm-hmm. For your emotional well-being, maybe sometimes it's better, even if you do forgive somebody and move on, that you don't put yourself back in that situation. Mm-hmm. It's okay.
And that's okay.
It's okay. It's the forgiveness part that's the big part. Okay, so you do that, but sometimes it's okay to say, I can't go back to this. You just can't.
No.
And there's nothing wrong with that.
There's nothing wrong with it.
Yeah.
And the problem is, if people try to reflect on that to make it look like you need to be content if that person's around, or that thing happen that you can't move past, a lot of times that could be a projection of their own insecurities. Like, not all the time, but sometimes.
Yeah.
Like, they need to have that thing or that person forgiven by me, for example, because it might make them feel like they're being validated. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with validating somebody else. I'm my own person. But my feelings are important too, just like your feelings are important. Forgiveness is something that is different for everybody.
Yep.
It's portrayed differently through everybody.
Yep.
And moving on is just a natural part of forgiveness.
Right. And that even can be a different thing. Everybody's walk is different.
Yeah, everybody walks a different path.
So what that looks like for you has to be best for you. And you should never guilt anyone for working through those situations. And even if it means stepping back and saying, I can't be a part of their life right now. Does it mean you ever will be or won't be? I don't know. But it has to be what's best for you. Every time. So with all that being said, and you did kind of touch on it, Brian, because you didn't hit it on the nail, but when you were talking about that friend that you're friends now, but the other friend that can't forgive you because of what you did, it's very weird, but it is what it is. One of the things I had said at the beginning was, what makes people not be able to forgive or move on? What makes people maybe be able to forgive but can't move on? This is what I think, and this is what the episode is about today. Are you excited? Oh, God. So in today's episode, we're going to discuss dealing with rejection.
Interesting. All right.
Do you see the parallels already? Yeah. Like, is your head already like...
I'm already at the end of the episode.
Oh, my God. Okay, so I'm going to ask you, what does dealing with rejection mean to you? With everything we've already just talked about, too. You can fit that in somewhere. But what does it mean?
Well, I would have to say that throughout my life, I mean, I'm 32 years old, and I would have to say that throughout my life, it's meant different things at different stages in life. It's very interesting to see how the more rejection a person deals with, I've noticed they either split in one of two directions.
Oh, okay. I'm anxious to hear this.
They either become super shut down,
okay,
whether it be emotionally, physically, mentally, or they become stronger and more confident.
This is true.
It's an extreme one way or the other. It's very rare that I ever find anybody that just fits right down the middle. I'm not saying it doesn't happen, but I don't, in my experience, and maybe you can tell me something different, but in my experience, I've never seen it one way, or I've never seen it right down the middle.
Okay.
And for me, it makes me more aware of myself. You know what I'm saying? Like, when I'm rejected in whatever way possible, sometimes I get an answer, sometimes I don't. But at the end of the day, I'm still who I am. And it depends, like I said, it depends on what kind of rejection, because there's many different types of rejection too.
Yep.
But it can, to me, rejection in general doesn't really faze me all that much. Really? At least now. Before it did.
Okay.
Like, a couple of years back, even as recent as that, rejection would have affected me differently than it does now.
Made you stronger? Or maybe that's not the right word.
Stronger is not the word. Okay. Confident.
Confident is the word.
Is the word.
Okay. So you've learned to deal with the rejection differently, maybe?
Well, because it doesn't change who I am as a person. If a person doesn't like my qualities, regardless of what kind of thing the rejection is, whether it's a job or a relationship or friendship, whatever the case may be, if you're rejected, it doesn't change who you are as a person. So why let it bother you?
So how's it made you more confident?
Because I can move on from it. Rejection is just a no. It doesn't throw my life into turmoil.
Okay. Okay.
It's literally that simple. See, a lot of people think with rejection that they overcomplicate things and overthink. They think, oh, there's something wrong with me, or I'm not good enough, or I can't do a good enough job. No, it's not that. Could be a multitude of different reasons from the person or the thing that rejected you, but it doesn't change who you are as an individual. Take pride in yourself. Not an arrogant kind of pride, but, like, I am good enough.
Mm-hmm.
I just need to find the right puzzle piece to fit into. It's like that.
Okay. I like that. So, I looked up the word reject in two ways, verb and a noun, to kind of give us a framework for where we're going. So, reject as a verb means to refuse to accept, consider, submit to, take for some purpose or use, to refuse to hear, to receive, or admit.
Mm-hmm.
To reject as a noun means a rejected person or thing, especially one that is rejected as not wanted, feeling unsatisfactory, or not being able to fulfill requirements.
Mm.
So it's basically like you said. So when we had said that rejection comes in many forms, I wanted to look at it from two standpoints because obviously being rejected can be many different things, right? So with that being said, I think personally that rejection can have a lot to do with how we handle and live our lives. So I'm asking you this question. Is that okay? I mean, not in a way that you can say a definitive answer, because there's always going to be some form of rejection. Every day, at some point,
mm-hmm.
you're going to deal.
Mm-hmm.
So you said it gives you more confidence. Do you think that by doing that makes it easier for you to forgive, to move on?
I think it's my level of confidence in general that makes me able to forgive and move on. Because it's a big part of it. Like, if you don't respect yourself enough to face rejection head on, you're not just, having a hard time forgiving and forgetting the person or the thing that rejected you, but you're also kind of rejecting yourself, the happiness and joy that you could get through that. See how I tied that into last week's episode? I'm so clever.
So clever.
But you see my point.
I do.
It all ties together.
It does, and that's
it
what
really comes down to you as a person.
It does.
You are in control of your own life. What was it I heard? I heard this in a quote in a song. I can't remember the exact quoting, but it went along the lines of pain is what you make it.
Okay.
And it's true. Do things hurt? Yes. We face pain every single day in some way, shape, or form, through emotion, physical pain, mental pain. It's a part of life. But how you choose to handle that pain is what you make it.
Okay, so take that girl, for instance, that can't move on and forgive you. Do you think a lot of that, what she's dealing with, has to do with maybe rejection that she's dealing with?
It could be a multitude of things. Obviously, I don't know because I don't know her either. But could be because of situations she's dealt with in the past that could have been similar.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been something she's currently going through. Could have been something that she moved on from and just no longer trusts. It's okay for her to feel the way that she does. How it bothers me is my prerogative, is my determination. Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Not determination. No, there's a word.
It's how you perceive it? No. It's how you...
It's how I determine it.
Process.
Yeah, it's how I want it to be.
What you do with it.
Yeah, it's what I choose to do with that. She can hate me the rest of her life if she wants. I don't care. Because I'm still me. I know myself. And I know that I taking responsibility for the actions that I did.
Well, what more can you do?
Well, exactly.
At some point, you've done everything.
Yeah. Well, nobody's perfect. She's probably made mistakes too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's what I meant earlier, earlier in this conversation, is like, has she never made mistakes?
Mm.
And I don't say this to be mean, but it's like, you put your pants on the same way I do. You breathe the same air I do.
Mm-hmm.
You're no better than I am.
Right.
So you can choose to not like me,
Mm-hmm.
but why carry the hate?
Yeah, exactly. Why do that? Like, is it benefiting you?
Yeah, because there's a difference between hating somebody and then hating somebody. Like, you carry that baggage with you. There's a lot of people in life I don't like. But like I said, you don't think about them or have a very strong opinion of them outside of being asked. Like, if somebody was like, what do you think of this person? I just don't like him. I just don't like him. I don't want to be around him. Okay, that's fair. Now, if somebody brings it up and you have a full-on meltdown,
That's a problem?
it can be.
Oh, it can be.
It can be.
Because at what level are you at now?
Yeah, exactly. You just get to a position where it's like you're doing more harm to yourself than the other person
Bingo.
is.
And that's where the forgiveness you have to keep a check on yourself. Because everything can go to the next level.
People never crumble in a day.
This is true. And that's why the forgiveness thing is so important, because like you said earlier, it's not really for the other person. It's for you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yep.
It is. Because I remember, and with dealing with rejection, I know, obviously I'm older than you because I'm your mother. I'm not going to give my age like you did, whatever. But I'll give an example of when I said that rejection comes in many forms, and that I believe that it has a lot to do with how you handle your life. So this might sound stupid to some people, but it's an example, honestly, of how rejection works. And we had talked about that in one of the, like rejection as a noun. It says a person or a thing being rejected, that you're not good enough, basically, unsatisfactory, not wanted, or not fulfilling requirements. So I remember I think it was either 6th or 7th grade, I had a teacher who said to me that I would never amount to anything. Now, I've been out of school a long time. Now, I said 6th or 7th grade. What I'm saying is with this is, and this is how rejection can carry on in your life, going back to saying you really have to keep a check on yourself, is looking back at it now, and I've gotten better, I'm still working on it, is this. That statement from that teacher made me feel like I really never could be good enough, to the point where, kind of like you, Brian, where it made you a different person in the respect that you would say you're good enough. What it did was this for me, and this will make sense in a minute. If it sounds like I'm rambling, I'm not. It put me in a place where now everything in life, I was going to prove to everyone that I am good enough. To the point where I think to my own detriment sometimes, because I became an overachiever, is what happened. Mm-hmm. I refused to accept failure in myself. And by doing that, I put other people in a place where I would not accept failure from them.
Right.
So I would look at others and be like, well, why are you doing this or doing that or not doing this or doing that? Because if I can do it, you certainly can. So it put people also in that same place where I was. And it was very unfair, because now you're making people live up to an expectation that maybe they could never be that person. Maybe if you want to destroy yourself like that, go ahead, but you don't destroy others around you. Does this make sense?
Yeah.
So that comment that she made, maybe in some ways you could say, well, that made you a good person, because there's nothing wrong with striving. No, you don't understand. Even to this day, there are times that I feel I'm not good enough. But then you had said in a podcast one time, when do you know when you've arrived? What is good enough? Where do you finally meet that marker? To the point now in my life, because it's been so long, I'm tired. I'm exhausted from trying so hard, to the point now where I'm just like, I'm not saying I don't care, but I just don't strive like I used to because I'm tired.
Well, see, and that's a question, and this is rhetorical. You don't have to answer it because this is something for you and maybe other people who went through similar situations. Based on where you're sitting right now, and again, don't answer because this is personal. This is you. Was it worth it? When you overachieve, you're not just putting yourself at an unachievable standard, but you're doing that to other people. And in time, seeing the reflection of yourself through other people, that projection of like, if I can do it, so can you. You can destroy people by doing that.
I've seen it.
You can destroy people because everybody's different.
Yep.
And when you put yourself at an unachievable position or in a position that's higher than somebody else, you almost, in the height of it, you look down at them. And then when they wrong you or disappoint you or fail, you almost don't forgive them for their failure. And it can push people away. And again, that's why that rhetorical question came up. And again, this goes out to anybody who's been in that same position, not just you, but was it worth it? I can sit here and say definitively, having been in that position for a very short time of being like, I need to measure up, I can guarantee you it was not.
Right. Right. And not answering your question directly, I will say this, because I never felt good enough, it affected my life in every aspect, physically, mentally, emotionally, whatever it was, because even to this day, there are little checks that I have to put on myself because I'll look at myself and say, well, that's not good enough, or you're not good enough, or you could have done better. It's always that one extra level that maybe, but you know what, maybe there is no extra level. So is it about just being happy with where you're at? And how do you become content with that?
Well, it's like I said, in one of those prior episodes, when have you hit the mark?
I don't know. Where is the mark?
I guarantee you it's never there. You can climb to the top of the mountain and realize there's still more to climb. Because then at that point, not only have you put yourself in a position where you feel like you're never good enough, so you have to do better, but now you've put yourself in a position where the best is still not good enough.
And what is the best?
The best is you as an individual. The best is not a place. That's why when, my friends tell me, if I ask them to do me a favor and they say, I'll do my best, I literally tell them, that's good enough. I don't expect any more than just your best. If you give me your best, if your best doesn't measure up to my standards, that's not a them problem. That's a me problem. It's like being a leader, As a leader, if I give somebody a job to do and I tell them to do their best, and this applies to even workplace positions. So if there's any bosses listening to this, please take this into consideration. But if your employees are giving you their best, and I'm not talking about the people that say they are and they're clearly being lazy. I'm talking about the people that are saying they're doing their best and they are doing their best, and you see them exhausted and tired, then as a leader, like in my case, like I said, if I've given my friends something to do or if I ask them to do something, I make up for the shortcomings. I carry them. I put myself at their level. I don't bring them up to mine. I go down to them. That's the value of a strong leader.
It is. It
and
is.
that's when doing your best is something that is different for everybody.
I like that. When you said that, Brian, that made me think of, like, Papa, he owned many businesses. And I asked him one day, I said, Dad, what is the one rule of thumb that you live by that has made you so successful? And this was what he said to me. He said, I never ask my employees to do anything or any more than I am willing to do myself. He was always willing to get in the trenches with them. I seen him do it. He would never ask any of them to do anything that he wasn't willing to do himself. So it is a sign of a good leader. And in the opposite, I can say this, because I have a very dominant personality for any of you that know me. And the thing with that, it can be a good thing and a bad thing. With a leader, and I've had to learn to adjust that, is I have lived in those moments with my own business where, like you said, Brian, it can destroy other people because you expect them to be at a certain level because you expect to be there.
And like I said earlier, whose problem is that?
Right.
So when it comes to the term of forgiveness and forgetting, if you're putting yourself in a position where you can't forgive somebody for something that they did, whose problem is that?
Right.
It's not a them problem.
Exactly. So the teacher that said that to me, who had the problem, right?
Oh, she did.
Yeah.
And it's unfortunate because we deal with it every single day.
Oh, we do. And I don't think she did it on purpose. And I don't know, but I don't think sometimes people say things that cause rejection. I'm not saying it's always done on purpose. Maybe it is.
Could be a multitude of factors. It could be how she was brought up.
It could be. Maybe she was struggling with the fact that she isn't good enough.
I was going to say, it could have been that maybe some point in her life somebody told her she was never going to be good enough. So instead of, as a leader, getting down to the level of the people that you're leading, to her, she was trying to bring you down to her level. You see what I mean? It's literally polar opposite.
It is.
A teacher for, like, your teacher, instead, what she should have did is bring herself to your level. Instead, she brought you to hers. And you know what? That's a huge sign of weakness.
It is.
Mentally, emotionally, physically, weakness. Because somebody who can't grasp the fact of somebody succeeding, or somebody that has to convince somebody else that they won't succeed, what happened to you?
Right. Yeah. Who hurt you? Because obviously something happened in your life.
Yeah.
And when you say bringing yourself down to their level, Brian, I like that because I read a quote somewhere, and it had to do with leadership. And I don't remember the exact quote, but it was basically, you would never, how did it go? You would never train a fish to fly. You would never train a bird to swim. Meaning this, you have to meet people where they're at because they're never going to be you. You're never going to be them. So why don't you work on their strengths instead of tearing them down and making them feel like they're worthless or they're never going to be good enough. They're, just the beating down all the time. And work with them in their level and build their strengths. And maybe they'll eventually, I don't want to say live up to your expectation because, again, I don't think that is right. But it gives them something to strive for. I mean, when that teacher said that to me, it just destroyed me. I've spent my whole life trying to prove myself to myself and everyone else. It's just not there. Because after a while, you just get tired. I am who I am. You are who you are.
And the reason that we have brought this a part of the original topic, because you're probably thinking, what does any of, striving, or being told you're not good enough, what does that have to do with forgiveness? It's a part of getting enough confidence in yourself to know that even though you make mistakes, even though you might not do everything to the best of your ability, or maybe you did something in your past that hurt somebody, at some point, you have to be willing to forgive yourself.
Absolutely. Yep.
If the other person can't forgive you, you essentially have to forgive them for that.
But then find a way to move on for yourself.
But then find a way to move on.
Yeah. Because it will destroy you.
It's all about finding, like, in the moving on, it's all about compromise. Like, what do I have to do to be happy in this current situation? That's the important thing. You can forgive somebody until you're blue in the face, but if you can't do that thing or be around that person, then you need to find something to bring you a point where you can move on from it. You see what I'm trying to say?
Yeah, because it can make you bitter or better.
Exactly.
Ultimately, it's going to affect you. Like that teacher that said that to me, I'm sure the minute it came out of her mouth, she never thought anything about it and has probably never thought anything about it since. But for me, it has been long-lasting. Years of a detrimental statement that I've had to try to live up to, that I can't. So how do you accept and live with rejection? Like you said, Brian, the thing is, in order to accept rejection and live with rejection, I think one, it's forgiving others. Okay, that's good. Whether they accept that forgiveness or not is up to them. But I think a big part of it is forgiving yourself. And because maybe a lot of it, Brian, that I still struggle with it is because I haven't forgiven myself because I feel like I can't.
You know, another thing too is, you know, forgiving yourself is one thing. But did you ever, like, you don't have to, again, this is another rhetorical question. But did you ever forgive her for saying that? You see where that point is? You see the point? It goes both ways. You can forgive yourself all you want for wasting your life on an unachievable standard, or to anybody watching, insert your own, you know, shortcoming in there. But did you ever think about the other person? Or I guess the forgetting would be if it was a thing. You know, you can't forgive an object unless you got some problems. But
that's another episode.
Yeah, I forgive that rock for tripping me last week. But you see what I'm saying? It all coincides to how you feel. Because you can't control the other person.
And we say that all the time, don't we?
Exactly.
We say that all the time. So is living and accepting, or I should say, is accepting and living with rejection, Brian, because we're going to get it every day, is the foundation of it, the key to it, forgiveness? Is everything wrapped around that? Because we talked about that even with the difference between happiness and joy.
You know what?
Is that what it is?
You know what I think the core fundamental factor of forgiveness is? Being humble.
Yeah. That puts you on a whole different level, doesn't it?
And it's not for, like, necessarily the benefit of, like, thinking I'm, you know, look how humble I'm being. It's recognizing that nothing and no one is perfect, and nobody will ever achieve the standards that are so far out of their reach. People can go above and beyond, yes. It's amazing to see some of the things that people can achieve in their lives.
Yeah.
But it's the outsider's perspective. It's the reflection that person puts on somebody else that makes them proud. And that's not a good thing.
No.
I don't look at you where you're at and think, I think differently, I react differently, I have different emotional, you know, positions during certain things. There's never been a point in my life where I said, man, I'm so glad I'm so much better than her when it comes to this. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I think humbleness keeps you on a nice plane. You're on a playing field where you can kind of meet people where they're at and meet yourself there too. Because it never brings you,
Well, it's like,
you know?
I went through something pretty stressful at the beginning of this week, and I wasn't really going to include this story, but it brings up a good point. I went through something pretty stressful at the beginning of this week. And from an outsider's perspective, it probably looked a lot worse than what I was thinking. Like, it had a reaction. I'm human. You know what I'm saying? It doesn't mean that I didn't have a reaction to it, but it was stressful enough that it basically made me go home from work. But when I got home and I relaxed, I was still angry about it, but I wasn't angry for the reasons that an outsider would probably look at it. But I thought to myself, what is holding on to this going to do for me?
Right.
I don't care what it does to everyone else around me. How is this going to affect me? Literally in that moment, I had to essentially forgive myself for reacting the way that I did. And that helped me relax. The problem persisted.
Right.
But I had to essentially let go.
Exactly. And there's nothing wrong with having feelings, and we've talked about that before. It's what you do with them, right?
And I feel that the emotions that were initiated with the situation, when I relaxed, I still had those emotions, but I was able to channel them to the best of my ability. Whether or not the situation, the people that were involved in it seen it, I can sit here and tell you that it definitely wasn't as bad as they thought it was.
Right. And is it better now?
I mean, look at me. I'm
5 days later?
I'm just chilling.
Yeah. Sometimes you just got to bring yourself to that place and say, this is okay. It has to be. It just has to be. Because we're all going to be faced with something every day. But I think, like you said, Brian, I think forgiveness towards yourself is huge. Yes, forgiving others is a big deal too. But forgiving yourself is huge. And I think that's how we learn to accept and live with rejection. And it comes in many forms. There's no doubt. It can be long-lasting. It can be short-term. But the purpose that it brings you to can really bring you to a place where you're either going to feel like a failure, or maybe it's not failure. Maybe it's just a setback.
Well, it's like you can think in the moment that you're not good enough. It happens to me all the time. We're all in those we're all human.
All of us.
We're all human. But I had to stop telling myself and being like, you know what? Stop telling yourself that. You are good enough. You matter. And, the people who are watching this, you matter too.
Yep.
You don't have to think about the words of other people or even the words of your own mind.
Yeah. Because other people that do those things, like you said with that teacher, you have to understand that they're dealing with things too, right? Maybe hers came from trauma from when she was younger, and she's, years later, like myself, always felt like she had to live up to some expectation. You don't know why people say the things they do. Like I said before, is it done on purpose or not? I don't know. I never stopped to ask her why she said that. But, everybody lives with something.
But you're responsible for yourself, not for her.
Yeah. And I wish, they say hindsight's 20/20, but sometimes looking back, it's a little fuzzy. I wish I knew then what I know now to some degree, because I wouldn't have let it eat so much of my life the way it did. It took a lot. A lot.
It's funny how not forgiving what somebody did to you can tend to really wear you out long term.
You're not kidding. Yeah.
It's not fun.
It isn't. No. It's a long fight.
It's why I don't care what people think.
And I think in some respects, Brian, that's not a bad thing.
Yeah, and you know, my level, or I'm not going to call it anything. You know, I'm not going to call it my level of confidence or my level of acceptance, or I'm not going to call it anything. Just where I'm at in my life. And this is why I inspire so many of my friends, because people ask me this all the time, and I think you've even asked me before during certain things, is like, how do you get to that point? And I tell them all the time, it's literally just as simple as just no longer caring. And I don't mean not caring in a cold way.
Right. No, that's not what you're saying. I know what you're saying.
I consider, like, you understand, but I'll clarify it anyway. It's a place of content.
Right.
Just accepting that it is what it is.
Yep.
Because if I worry about it too much, or I hold on to it, or I don't forgive others or myself, then who's the one getting hurt?
Right. Well, again, you're not in control of other people. I mean, I'm the type of person, and I think this relates kind of with what you're saying with the not caring thing, Brian, is that if I ask somebody to do something for me, and I've asked them several times, and eventually, you know, they keep saying no, whatever. Eventually, I'm just not going to ask anymore. Now, is that a bad thing? I don't think so, and you can tell me what you think, only because I don't want it to bother me that they keep saying no. So when I say that I don't care anymore, I say it in this respect. I think it's a lot like what you're saying. I'm just not going to ask anymore because you know what? It is what it is, and it's okay. If they don't want to, why should I keep trying to make that thing happen?
Why compromise yourself?
If it's not going to. Because the only one at the end of the day it's going to keep hurting is me, because they're just going to keep saying no.
Yep.
So it's okay to just not care in a way to where you just let it go. And it has to be. Yeah. And I think that's what you're saying, right?
Essentially, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's facing rejection head on.
Yeah.
And being able to forgive yourself and others when things don't go your way.
I like when you said it's facing rejection head on, because I think rejection is one of those things that it can make or break you. And I think, like you said, if you deal with it head on, and I think dealing with it head on does have to do with forgiveness, it won't eat you alive.
Like, I'll tell you right now, and I'm only going based off of where I'm at right now, but if somebody looked me dead in the eyes and say, you'll never amount to anything, I would literally just say, okay, sorry.
Like, on whose standard, though? Like, if somebody said that to you, and I understand what you're saying, but like, what standard are we basing this off of?
A lot of times I like to prove people wrong in that, because I've actually had people tell me that, but like in different ways. But I've always been like, well, I'm going to prove you wrong. And a lot of times I end up a lot happier than they do. And they don't like it. Yeah.
You got to do what's best for you, that's for sure. You are worth it. You have to find your self-worth. And like you said...
That's a big part of it.
You have to find your self-worth. Yeah.
And realizing your self-worth. Like, you don't need anybody to tell you that. You don't need me to tell you you're more valuable. You don't need, her to tell you that. You need to... it's a thing that you need to do yourself.
Yep.
Because nobody was around to tell me that. Do you think I'm at where I'm at because somebody told me this stuff?
Right.
No. I came to a position where I said, enough.
And you have to.
You have to.
Yeah.
Because at the end of the day, the only person that it was hurting was me.
Exactly. Yes, at some point, you've got to stop that train.
Oh, and I think I've mentioned this before in other podcasts too, but it's like, you are your own worst enemy.
We are. We overthink everything. We do. That
person next to you can tell you anything you want, but if you let that get into your head, at that point, they're no longer the enemy.
Right. Your head is. Yep. It's true.
Mm-hmm.
It's true. It's all how you deal with it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I think we're going to wrap that up for tonight, unless you have any other comments or suggestions.
No, I think we definitely hit it right on the head.
That was good. That was really good. So just to let you all know, we can be found on many different platforms like YouTube, Spotify, and Apple. Please like, share, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you'll know when you're getting your next podcast. And share with others so that they can find some hope and change in this also. And also our email is givemhec@gmail.com. That's GIVEMHEC@gmail.com. And please feel free to give us suggestions, comments, feedback, whatever you want to do. That's what it's there for. So again, we are so glad you are here, and we hope that these are making a difference in your life as they are ours. And we hope to see you again on our next podcast.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
All right, everyone. Have a good night.
Good night.